Welcome to the SIWIKE Podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SIWIKE Podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. We're here with our new guest host, Francesca. How are you doing, Francesca?
I'm doing well. It's a fantastic day today.
For sure, indeed. So Francesca comes to us with a background in sciences and education, entrepreneurship, a whole bunch of things. So what would you say that you're up to now?
Well, right now, I am currently the founder of Top Class Edge Learning, and I like to think that we do education for a better future. That is the entire goal of Top Class Edge Learning. So we aim to empower students to be future ready and to be passionate about learning, whatever it is that they love learning about, whether math, sciences, English. We want them to be passionate and ready for the future. Things are changing really rapidly, and we want to make sure that students are up to date and that they're ready for what the future has to offer. So we offer education programs in English, like I said, math and sciences, and really we're all about helping students succeed in school and beyond in life.
Sounds good. And obviously you didn't always start that way. So I'd love if we rewind it a little bit and talk a little bit about Francesca as a kid. What were you like growing up? What were some early fond childhood memories?
Early fond childhood memories, reading Harry Potter.
Okay.
I was really big into reading. I've always loved reading as a kid, as a teenager, growing up, even now. So I was one of those weird, quiet kids. I like to call myself lovingly the weird, quiet kid. So
Okay.
I wouldn't consider myself at all popular. I moved around a lot in elementary school and then got to high school. I did really, really well in high school. And I got to be voluntold by my teachers to help my tier. So I say voluntold because it wasn't at first, it wasn't a volunteer type of situation, but my teacher saw that I was doing really well in school. It was something that I excelled at. And quite frankly, it was something that I liked doing. So more frequently, I got voluntold to help my peers. And I eventually did grow to love it. So I did win the Governor General Academic Medal, as well as getting, scholarships. But beyond that, I loved the process of educating. I loved the process of teaching, and I had lots of fun helping my peers get excited and understand concepts, whether it was math or sciences and English. And I even remember things like being right at the cafeteria table at school or being right at the kitchen table at my home or my parents' home at the time and helping students with whether it was chemistry or biology, math, physics, what have you. And even then, I remember one time I was in a grade 12 chemistry class while I was still in grade 11. So thing was, like I said, I really loved I loved studying at the time. I was really good at chemistry, physics, biology, math, English, things like that. So I decided to take grade 12 chemistry in grade 11. And that would also allow me to kind of free up some of my time in grade 12 to kind of do other things as well. So anyway, took grade 12 chemistry in grade 11 because I love chemistry, I love sciences. And one of my grade 12 student peers was struggling. So she wasn't doing as well in grade 12 chemistry as she wanted to. The teacher saw that and decided, hey, you know what, Francesca, can you help out this classmate of yours? And of course, I was more than happy to do it. So I remember going over to her house. So we'd play with her cats, we'd play some board games, we'd go over chemistry problems. So I thought, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. I get to make some friends, connect with people, hang out with my classmates, teach some chemistry. Anyway, it all ended up being a really great thing. So fast forward a few years, I kind of honed this knack for helping students into a more developed skill. I learned things that did work to help students or other students. I learned what didn't work as well. I helped to develop maybe better study strategies, test-taking tips. And with that, Top Class Edge sort of came to be from all of this experience. And that's where we're at today.
That's amazing. And I'm wondering if we can kind of dig through a little bit of that story. So obviously it sounded like that you were a pretty academic kid, did well in school, and obviously you were able to help others. And you got your first taste of, call it tutoring, at the voluntelling of a teacher. But in high school, you ended up I guess choosing an eventual degree in sciences, right? From that background, it was said, well, you should become a teacher, right? So what was that journey like? Was there like thoughts to become sciences and then go into teaching and education, or was education off the mark, or what was that decision process like?
Yeah, no, really great question. So in high school, I wasn't 100% certain. There were definitely some hints growing up that became more obvious over time. All I knew in high school was I loved sciences. It was something that I was really good at. I understood it well. And so I decided, okay, you know what? Got into the University of Toronto and pursued sciences simply because I loved it and thought to myself, you know what, there are so many different options with sciences, whether it's research, whether it's administrative, whether it's education or teaching, whether it's what have you, medicine. So there are so many different options with sciences. And I figured, okay, let's go into sciences and explore this passion that I have. Mm-hmm. And along the way, I'll sort of figure out I'll narrow down which field makes the more sense, depending on how my strengths align with various career options and trajectories. Anyway, so what happened was I developed this knack for educating, as I'd mentioned, that started out in high school and then grew as I got through university. And finished university right out of school. Something kind of interesting happened in that I ended up working at CIBC head office, okay. Which again was a bit of a change, but regardless, I got this great position at CIBC out of university, which I thought was a great opportunity because it was a corporate job. It was a real job, quote unquote. Work downtown, great pay, great benefits, amazing team, a little bit different from sciences, but still willing to explore and wanted to explore there as well. I always kept that love for sciences, that love for education as well in the back of my mind all throughout my time at CIBC. And it became clearer and clearer over the years that education, sciences, all of that was something to pursue. And the turning point really came when I asked myself, I remember sitting at my office job at my desk thinking, okay, what do I really, really want out of life? What is my purpose? What is the most significant way that I think I can make an impact? And so with that, I really put all of my effort and my love into Top Class Edge. Decided to leave the bank at that time. And really throughout this journey, I've been really honored to help lots of students to go on to do incredible things. So really, it's always all about the students and helping them with their journeys. So I've been very grateful and I'm deeply honored to get to help students do incredible things. Getting into their dream schools, of course, U of T, McMaster, Waterloo, McGill, but also places in the US, which is really interesting too. So Yale, Brown, Cornell, UCLA. But equally as important as getting those marks or getting into those dream schools, I think, is seeing students become more confident and develop their own opinions, become more who they are, enjoy the process of learning, and then develop those skills, like I said, not only for school, but also for life. So I think that's the most rewarding part. And that's how that journey came about.
So obviously you've developed your tutoring business, Top Class Edge, into a thriving business. I'm wondering if you could take us back in time and share a little bit of maybe that first tutor. So obviously the classmate in chemistry was more just volunteering, being voluntold, but at some point someone paid you to do that. What was the kind of the first, I guess, paid tutoring gig that you had?
Honestly, it's been so long, I can't remember. I've been doing this for decades at this rate. So I can't, okay. I wish I had one of those beautiful, I remember my very first student that I was paid for. Honestly, I wish I did, but I couldn't. I will say one of the most memorable students I've taught earlier on in my tutoring career was a student who actually hated sciences. And I started out with sciences, that being my first love, my first passion and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And at least as far as teaching and education goes. And this student came to me, her mother was very, I guess, had some concerns because at that time, the student wasn't very driven or didn't really have much direction of what she wanted to do or where she wanted to go. She was just sort of floating about as far as school goes. So the mom had some concerns, not only about how she was doing in biology, which was the subject that I was teaching her, but also about just a career path direction, what she wanted to do. And anyway, turned out that I tutored her for a couple of years through biology, and maybe something clicked eventually. I would like to think that something clicked, at least that's what she said to me. And she decided to eventually go into nursing. So that was really inspiring to me, and that definitely gave me a bit of a nudge to say, you know what, this is why I love doing what I do. I mean, here's the student who at the beginning, when I first met her, didn't really have any sort of passions or interests, wasn't really sure what she wanted to do. And at the end decided to go into nursing, loved our tutoring sessions, improved as a result of them, and then decided to apply that to a career that she found rewarding. So yeah, that was probably one of the more memorable times that I can think of as far as tutoring and paid tutoring.
Sounds good. And I'm wondering if you could share kind of the conversations with family and those around you as you made the decision to go into like the business world or education full time. So the way that I'm playing it in my head is a lot of um, kids of immigrant parents. They want their kids to be doctors, lawyers, accountant, engineers. So I have this daughter who is great at sciences, and she is my hope to be a doctor. And then, well, decides to go to a bank. Is like, was that an easy conversation? Your parents were supportive of that. What was that conversation? And then that transition to tutoring. That must have been another interesting conversation. So could you share a little bit on those two decisions?
Well, to start, I have amazing parents. So I do understand where that comes from. And I do see it in my students as well. I also see it, over social media, and I hear about it through others. I have supportive parents, and I have amazing parents. Of course, maybe they had initially some ideas about where they wanted me to go. And yeah, there were some difficult conversations along the way. But as far as my family background and how they influenced me, so both of my parents, they're the hardworking professionals, immigrants from the Philippines. And what they really taught me was the importance of hard work, having a good education, being of service, family, community. So those were the values that they instilled. And for them, I think what was important was just taking those values and being of service, doing something good for the world. So that did partially draw me to education, and they always knew that I had this knack and this talent for education, for school, for teaching. And for them and for myself, I saw tutoring as a way to use my gifts and talents directly to impact others, in particular students who are struggling. So, I mean, maybe there was some difficult conversations about the future, but I mean, I don't know what parent and what child doesn't have some kind of a difficult or complicated conversation at some point in time about what they want to do in the future. But all I can say is, as for my parents, I feel like I really lucked out. I have great parents. They're supportive. Maybe they had some expectations of what they wanted or what they saw for me versus what I ended up doing. But yeah, like I said, it was more about the values that they instilled and doing something positive. So it all kind of worked out.
Sounds good. It seems like that your parents really allowed you a bit of that freedom and flexibility where they trusted you. So obviously, parents will always have their preconceived notions, but they trusted that you understood the path that you were putting yourself on, and obviously they were able to see the success that came out of it. I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about like the founding of Top Class, because previously you were doing kind of tutoring on the side a little bit, right, as a student, and then you want to formalize it a little bit more into like a business. Can you walk us through the process of, well, maybe choosing the name, or like what was the offering and all that good stuff around starting a startup, a small business?
So that sprung up naturally and very organically. So with me, I had students who were interested in taking lessons with me ever since, I mean, really university.
Mhm.
So it just sort of grew naturally and very organically. And it just got to a point where eventually I had all these students in my calendar, and my calendar became more and more full. So I guess I decided to formalize it when I realized, okay, maybe there's something here, and I'm making more here than my corporate job. So it made sense, I guess, and it just came about organically, I would say. And then I thought to myself, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I better make it legit. So decided to turn it into an actual business and incorporate and whatnot. And the name came about. I don't remember the details of it. It was so long ago, but really, I thought to myself, I wanted it to make sense and really appeal to the students and the parents that I wanted to work with, and the ones who wanted to work with me. So class, that makes sense because students go to class, edge, in order to have that future ready edge for the future. And then top, because we want to be at the top of our game. We want to do our best. We want to make our best effort. So kind of just smushed some words together that made sense, and that also aligned with the students and the parents who I hope to serve. And that's how Top Class Edge came to be.
Sounds good. And not only are you a business owner, you're also a published author, a podcaster, YouTuber. I'd love if you walk us through the process of those. So for those that are watching a video, the book is right here. And it's about personal finance. So that's a little bit different than education, but obviously it's education about personal finance. So walk us through a little bit about kind of those areas that you started to create content for: the book, the podcast, YouTube.
Essentially, that came out from students' questions. So I realized as I was going through, and really part of the big mission with Top Class Edge is to offer life skills and things that maybe aren't really covered as much as they could be or should be. Nowadays, schools are taking more steps towards introducing things like financial literacy and things like mental health into the curriculum, and that's an absolutely great step. But I also wanted to support that and supplement that as well, so that students could have it, could see it from maybe more than one perspective and could kind of get that instruction from more than one place. So with financial literacy, that was something that at least me, when I was growing up, I didn't see as much as I wanted to. And I thought to myself, okay, if I'm a student right now, if I'm in high school, if I'm in maybe even elementary school, what's something that would really benefit me so that years out when I'm in university, even when I'm in high school, and beyond that when I'm an adult, what's something that I could learn right now that would benefit me for years to come? And I thought to myself, personal finance, financial literacy, right? Even learning how to, for the younger students, learning how to make change, right? It could be something so simple. For the older students, that might be saving, that might be budgeting, that might be even learning words like investing so that it doesn't seem like this threatening, scary, daunting thing that they've never seen before in adulthood. You know, that's something that I would have loved to experience as a kid or growing up in high school and throughout university. So I thought to myself, okay, maybe if I can compound or put all of my knowledge into this book in a very relatable way, where it's engaging, where it's interesting, it's not super dry or daunting or threatening, then that's what I was hoping would benefit students of today. And that's how the book came to be. Same thing with the content, the podcasts, as well as my YouTube channel. That sprouted, or that came about from questions that students were asking me. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm getting these questions a lot. If I'm getting these questions a lot, I can only imagine how many more students out there, how many more parents out there are maybe in their heads asking these questions, or they're just not asking me directly, right? So I thought, okay, let me go ahead and just create this material, create this content. If the students that I'm teaching now, or that we're teaching now, are benefiting, or they're asking these questions and want answers to these questions, there are probably lots more people out there who would benefit from some kind of content on this material, and that's how it came to be. I focus on things like future readiness. I focus on things like different career options, just presenting, for example, what it looks like to be a doctor, what it looks like to be an accountant, what it looks like to be an engineer, or what have you, from people who are actually in the industry, because so many students they have those questions and they wonder, what is it really like? You know, what is it like to go through the journey of going through medical school and whatnot? So being able to give them a window into that, I think, is really valuable, and it's something that I wish I had.
That makes perfect sense. And it seems like a natural next step and progression to kind of take those questions and then document it in a book, podcast, YouTube. But you mentioned that, well, investment is something that might be daunting to someone who's never heard of it. But writing a book is probably that same area for a lot of folks. So what was your approach to kind of writing the book, starting a podcast, YouTube? Like for some people, it's like, oh my gosh, like that's an overwhelming concept. So how did you go about, let's say, starting with the book?
Geez, this is something that has always been in the back of my mind for some time. I mean, I can't say always, I guess, to be more precise. It had been a couple of years that I was thinking about, I really need to do something as far as financial literacy, because more and more students were, number one, asking questions, but more and more students were also maybe going out into the world and not really prepared as far as financial literacy goes. So they didn't have that financial literacy to take them through, let's say, those first couple of years, whether it's university or in the workforce. So it had been sitting in the back of my mind. And finally, I sat down and thought to myself, okay, if I don't do this now, it was the beginning of the year. And I thought to myself, or it was the beginning of this year, actually. And I thought to myself, okay, new year, I'm going to do this. I had that, whole new year energy, I guess it was. And sat down, just buckled down and did it. I thought to myself, nope, I am not going to dissuade myself. I'm not going to let all these scary thoughts and fears get to me. I'm just going to sit down and do it. And I did it. And one page at a time, I actually chunked it up. So one thing that I like to do when it comes to large projects like this, especially when there's no strict deadline that's externally given, is I just give myself internal deadlines. I put them into my calendar, and I just give myself deadlines, essentially, to make sure that things are completed. So I said, let's say, for example, by the end of this week, I'm going to have chapter 1 done, or something like that. And then by the end of next week, I'm going to have chapter 2 done. And then it's just a matter of breaking down that larger kind of goal into smaller pieces, into smaller pieces, into smaller pieces. And even something as daunting or even something as vague as get chapter 1 done, that can be really vague and daunting as well. So breaking that down into smaller milestones becomes helpful, or became helpful, at least in my process. So rather than say, get chapter 1 done by the end of this week, for example, it would be do the research and, I don't know, put down into words like 5 paragraphs or something like that. So essentially just breaking it down into what might be considered, let's say, SMART goals, and then executing on that. That was a big part of my process.
That's awesome. So there sounds like that there is a systematic process, project planning, let's call it, for the writing of the book.
Yeah, there is a great book. It's by Igor Klibanov, and it's called, I think it's getting retitled, but anyway, it was called The Bestseller Blueprint. It might still be available on Amazon, and I definitely refer to that a lot. And I'm just going to put a disclaimer out that is my husband. So there we go. So I definitely referred to that book, and it gave me a lot of, let's say, tactical elements, tactical points, just to get it actually done, if that makes sense, or to put it up on Amazon and whatnot. Yeah, that's how that kind of happened.
So the lesson learned to get a book published is to marry someone who wrote a book on getting a book published, and then everything flows easily from there.
I would say that if you have a mentor, I think having a mentor is probably the most valuable as far as getting things like a book or what have you done. I mean, mentors are so, I think we'll call them shortcuts to success, not in a way that, and not in any sort of negative way, but in a way that mentors have been there, they've done that, they've made a ton of mistakes along the way, and then they condense that, and then they present it to you, someone who is going through that journey for the first time. So I would say mentorship and having a mentor who has walked that path and they've done so successfully will really help as far as speeding up the process, if that's what you're looking to do, especially if they can help you get around those pitfalls, or at least help you navigate through them maybe a little bit better than if you were alone. So having a mentor, I think, is the tip and the key here.
For sure. And I like to say it's more accelerating career success versus a shortcut, because you're not cutting corners by any means, or not doing stuff. It's making sure that you're still doing all the steps, but doing in a more effective and efficient way.
There we go.
Yeah.
Accelerating is probably the better word there. You're absolutely right. There's no cutting corners. It's more of just optimizing the process.
Absolutely. You're supposed to still do the work. And I'd love if you shared a little bit on the podcast YouTube. Was it similar? Did you have a mentor or someone that helped you accelerate your process there? Or is it just figured out? It's all on YouTube.
Figured it out along the way. So I guess I have mentors. They're informal mentors in that they don't know they're my mentors.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of reading content, watching what's out there, and then condensing that or turning that into my podcast or turning that into my YouTube channel, or using that in order to create my YouTube channel and my podcast. So I have informal mentors. I plug, or I take from a lot of different kind of sources, and just go ahead and combine that into what is now my YouTube channel and what is now my podcast. But yeah, pretty much a similar process, but not as direct.
For sure. And I'd love folks to consider that, where not all mentors have to be someone that you've had a coffee chat with or Zoom chat with. It could be someone that you just kind of observe from afar and kind of emulate and say, oh, that worked for them. That could probably work for me. Because sometimes a mentor is something as simple as that. And I'd love if you, as we close off the podcast, to share a little bit of your SWIKE. So I know you've shared a lot of that as we went through the journey, but are there any particular ones that you want to emphasize, or kind of new ones that you want the audience to be aware of?
So for stuff I wish I knew earlier, we talked a little bit about financial literacy, but I think in a broader sense, life skills. So to me, education, in addition to academics, there's so much more to a well-rounded, a full education. Academics are important, so don't get me wrong. That's why I'm very focused on academic excellence. That's something that I emphasize because it's something that, that was something that I was very strong at, and it's something that a lot of students need help with. So academics, absolutely. But thinking long-term, what I ask students and what I ask people to think about is what else is important for success beyond school, beyond academics, right? So that is life skills. That's things like time management. That's organization, effective communication. So not only do these things help with the academic side of things, by the way. They also support success beyond the classroom. So it's kind of cool because these life skills are going to help with the academics on one end, and then they're going to help you after school, meaning when you're, let's say, in the workforce and have your career going. And another thing I think related to the life skills aspect is to think in years, not weeks or months. This is very much related to the idea of life skills. So the question that I like to ask myself, and that I hope, and that I ask students as well as their parents, is that what are some skills and habits that if you started them today would serve you not only in math or English or sciences, but also in university, and also in your career beyond these couple of semesters or beyond even this semester.
Right.
So to think beyond the weeks, to think beyond the months even, and to think in years. So you have to do a little bit of both, of course, because there are such thing as short-term goals and also long-term goals.
Yep.
But basically don't stop at the short-term goals. Don't sacrifice long-term goals in order to only meet short-term goals.
For sure. A lot to unpack there. And what I took from it is that life skills, those foundational skills, call it soft skills, human skills, 21st century skills, whatever you want. But those foundational things that like time management, learning to learn, building relationships and connecting with others, those are often what makes you more successful than calculus, physics, and math and science and all that. So that stuff is important, but really getting, let's say, an A in that is usually the culmination of all those other things that allowed you to get to that point. So definitely thinking more about the learning versus the actual grade itself is definitely an important skill. And thinking a little bit long term is definitely helpful, where a lot of folks, they see till the next midterm, the next term, the next whatever, versus, well, what do you want to do with your degree when you graduate and things like that? Sometimes taking a bit of time to ponder that can be helpful. And what I found was a little bit of the underpinning is when you talked about like financial literacy, what came to mind was compound interest, right? And that's for money that compounds and builds itself. But you talked about skills that what could you do in a week and a month, and compound interest for your own life skills. Because when you get better at time management, building relationships or whatever, if you do it little by little every day, then by the time you're 22, 30, whatever, then that would compound and give you a significant return versus you start later whenever you get to it. So I think those are amazing pieces of advice for your younger self. And I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about what we can look forward to hearing from you in the future. So future plans and aspirations. And if folks want to reach out, where could they connect with you?
Well, for Top Class Edge, I'm just excited to make a greater impact. So I want to help more students, or myself and my team anyway. We want to make more of an impact, help more students, help more learners across the GTA and beyond. So that's for Top Class Edge. I mean, the heart of it is to inspire and create a better world, a better future. So the more we can do that, the better. As for myself, it's going to be a busy year. So just looking forward to wrapping up this summer that we're having and getting going with another busy year. Where can you find more information about myself? Where can you reach me? The best way is probably through my website. So that's topclassedge.com. Again, topclassedge.com. That's probably the best place to find me. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. So that's just my name, Francesca Cadhit. Go ahead and find me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to connect there as well.
That's awesome. So thanks so much, Francesca, for sharing your story. And hopefully we'll have you back for a future episode.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Take care.
Thanks for joining us on the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Luki Danu, LUKIDANU, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.